Yeah.
A strong economy will have more buildings, it will have a lot more going on.
Who earning between 120 to 160,000 can finance a $1.3 million property?
No one. It's not going to work. I really don't like this scheme, I'll be honest. I've never been a fan of having a federal government owning part of my house.
Yeah. If you're financing up to 98%, you probably shouldn't be buying a house.
The repayments would
You should at least be 5% deposit.
Correct. You could write that off instantly in that financial year, and it drops your net income by $20,000.
Yeah.
That's the issue.
Yeah.
Why is it increasing so much? Why are they not capping these increases like they did with private health insurance and some of these other things in the industry?
Yeah.
Pay it back now. Welcome back to Talk Property to Me. My name is Brad East.
I'm Aaron Downie, and today we're talking about the federal budget that's just been released.
What an exciting topic we get to talk about today.
Everyone's going to click straight off.
So basically, obviously coming up to an election quite soon, Labor government had an opportunity to bring out a really good budget to win some votes and really help the economy going forward. What we're going to be going through today is really unpacking some of those key features. We don't have time to go through all of it, and let's face it, that would be a pretty shit episode.
Yeah, it'd be pretty. Like I said, no one would listen.
Going through it, so we've picked out I've picked out some important things that I wanted to talk about in relation to that, and then just our thoughts on how that's going to affect the economy, or is it going to help or not?
Obviously, being a property podcast, the main topic's the property market.
Yep.
But small business owners and economic forecasts as well, which is a big contributor to
it all works
market.
together.
Yeah.
A strong economy will have more buildings. It will have a lot more going on. Prices will be lower. All these things make a difference overall. So inflation's probably the biggest one for homeowners. Obviously, we've got high inflation numbers at the moment. That's why the interest rates went up, and they're starting to come down. So the inflation is projected to settle at 2.5% by mid this year.
Yeah.
So well within the target range. If anything, I actually think they probably went a little bit too far with it. I think we're going to see another rate reduction soon.
Yeah.
I think that needs to happen. So most of the big four are now predicting that rate cut to be around May.
Yeah.
So I think it was May 20 off the top of my head.
And that's not surprising, like an inflation figure at 2.5%. It's what they wanted.
Correct.
It's what they were working towards all along.
Yeah. I think they may have belted everyone up the side of the head a bit too much though.
Yeah.
No one's got cash. It's as simple as that.
No.
And even if they did drop these rates in May, what they're saying is the effect of that in the economy won't be felt until probably December this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yes, it's exciting. You get 0.25 off your home loan. You're not going to feel much of that for the short term. So, the biggest scheme that Labor government has come out with for property or property related since they've been in government is the Help to Buy scheme, also known as the Shared Equity Scheme.
Yeah.
So, basically what that is you go out and buy a house. Let's say in this case it's 1.3 mil in a metro area. If it's an existing home, the government actually contributes 30% towards that, so that the loan amount is lower, and you can get into the market essentially with a 2% deposit with no LMI.
Yeah.
Sounds good. The downsides are the government owns 30% of your property.
Yeah, but it's also important to highlight, one, you only own 70% of your property, but New South Wales Metro up to $1.3 million, who earning between 120, and then this is couples, who earning between 120 to 160,000 can finance a $1.3 million property?
No one. It's not going to work.
No.
So then even in the, because that's a combined income of 160K, so 80K each.
Because
it's not much.
If you're borrowing 98%, which this suggests because you've got a 2% deposit.
You're actually only borrowing so the government contributes cash.
So they're contributing 30%.
Correct. So it's actually 30%. So it would actually be 70% of 1.3 would be the loan amount.
Yeah.
So it is less, but they own 30% of your house. And then so basically what they've also got into this scheme as well is if your income then increases past that level, which would then be recorded via single touch payroll, so reported to the ATO, it can then trigger a need for you to refinance and pay back the government instantly, well, within their time frame.
Repaid, or is it buying out their
You got to buy their part out. You got to refinance and then take over the whole amount,
which would be revalued at that time.
Correct.
So you're paying an increased figure because they're getting the property value increase at their 30%.
Yes. So you got to pay back their portion. So basically, they can trigger that. That's probably the biggest part of this scheme that worries me.
Yeah.
Is you get a new job, you get a pay rise, bang. Now I've got to pay back this 30%. All of a sudden, you've got a pay rise, but then your repayments have just gone through the roof at the same time. I don't like it. I really don't like this scheme, I'll be honest. I've never been a fan of having a federal government owning part of my house.
Yeah.
What if you want to, you got a mortgage over your house, yes, but if you wanted to do certain things, do you have to ask for permission?
Does it have to be shared equity? I mean, if they're willing to take that risk, obviously it's not risk for them because they're getting an increased value in their property as well. But if they're just wanting to guarantee the LMI with the 2% deposit, that would be a better way of doing so.
Which is what the Liberal government did under the first home loan deposit scheme, which I like.
Yeah.
So that's a 5% deposit, and that's a 5% deposit, and the extra 15%, so to make up that 20%, is guaranteed by the government, so that if anything did go wrong, they would cover that shortfall. Which
is more realistic. And I mean, I know that there's an extra 3% that you've got to contribute, but if you're financing up to 98%, you probably shouldn't be buying a house.
The repayments would
should at least be a 5% deposit.
Correct. And 5%, realistically, you think about it, that's $40,000 on an $800,000 property.
Yeah.
That's not a substantial amount to save. When I bought, back in my day, when I bought my first home, I had to pay the lender's mortgage insurance, I had to pay stamp duty, I had to pay all these things, which you don't pay any of them now.
Yeah, I did that in 2014 when I first bought as well.
So if it's a new build under this Help to Buy scheme, they can actually contribute up to 40% because they're trying to, promote new builds and the building industry. Again, that's a lot of ownership for the government to own over your house. It just doesn't create much flexibility. If you do sell or if you do hit over those caps, you have to pay the thing back straight away.
And it is that's an extra $800 million contributed, totaling that budget allocation to $6.3 billion.
Yeah.
And the government owning 30% of your home, and moving on to the build to rent schemes, it really seems like they're taking the home ownership away or the sole ownership away from everyday Australians, because the build to rent schemes are more so with the managed investment trusts.
Yeah. And this is, in my opinion, and it was just another way for them to make a bit of equity. They're essentially investing 30% into property.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yes, it kind of helps you, but you're paying it back.
Helps them as
You know
well.
what I mean? Like, at least with the 5% deposit scheme, that you're not paying that lender's mortgage insurance. Your interest rates are actually tailored as if you're not paying lender's mortgage insurance as well, so you get that lower rate as well. Yes, your overall leverage is quite high, but it's yours. It's your house.
And you've got a compounding property of 100% of its value,
correct,
not 70%.
Correct. And then, given the property market at the moment, it would only take a year or two before you pass that 80% LVR anyway. So build to rent scheme via MITs, which is a managed investment trust. So basically they've cut the tax rate from 30% down to 15% for MITs that are going to build to rent projects.
Yeah.
So basically the reason for that is they want a bit of foreign investment into these, like the long-term rental affordability sort of scheme blocks. Look, it could work. I think personally, I think if you're putting so much incentives on something, then it mustn't be real good. That's just my opinion.
No, I agree.
Hey, you have this. It's really good.
Yeah.
If it was really good, people would be lining up and you wouldn't have to incentivize it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That one, let's see how that one pans out.
Yeah.
So let's look at the economy in general. So before Labor government came into power, there was a gross debt amount of $888 billion, a net debt of 517 billion, 167, I believe, 167 billion of that was actually residual from the previous Labor government as well.
Yeah.
That had just kept following through.
Yeah.
So now under Labor, that debt amount has gone up to 940 billion, and the net debt amount has gone up to 620 billion. So they've been spending well.
So the gross debt hasn't increased as much as their net debt.
No.
Their net debt's increased substantially.
Yeah. So the key reasons for this, the number one reason for this increase is the NDIS scheme.
Yeah.
I think I said schemes twice, but yeah.
NDIS scheme.
Scheme. But and we all know how much of a flop that rollout of that was.
Fuck.
You know, that's a different podcast. I'm sure we could whinge about that, but that's an absolute farce of a scheme, and it was absolutely rorted in the early days, and I still think it is.
No doubt that these schemes, the NDIS, do support people, but we're talking about the whole economy here.
They shouldn't have privatised so much of it.
Yeah.
You literally can go speak to someone over here that, you know, is accredited or not accredited to give you an invoice to go over to here, and then they just inflate the shit out of every invoice they send in. It's a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
It should never have been privatised and run by industry.
Yeah.
It should have been an internal Medicare-driven thing. Anyway, that's a different rant.
That's a different one.
There was a lot spent on health and aged care. There was also a lot spent on defence, not listed on here, but the Labor government always expand public service as well.
Yeah.
I think it expanded by over 10% off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it was from 41,000 to 44,000.
Yeah, so it went up quite a lot. And welfare support increased a bit as well. So while inflation is starting to come down, we've got an economy that is running negative. You know, it's a negative of about $26 billion per annum at the moment.
Yeah.
Which isn't good. You know, and we think of it as the fucking hypocrites. You know, if you run a small business and you owe $10,000 to the ATO, pay it back now.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
But they've got $800 or $940 billion worth of debt, and they're increasing that debt by 27 per annum.
Yeah, I'm not sure
billion.
if anyone saw the figures for the forecast for next year, but it's going to increase. It's going to almost double.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, but if the government's doing it, that's fine. We'll pay you back when we can. We'll just give us some more money.
Just give us 30% of your house.
Yeah, give me some of your house. That'll do it. Small businesses. So, yeah, obviously, economy's a little bit cooked with how much they're spending at the moment. Will that change with Liberal? Let's see.
Yeah.
The business, this is obviously very relevant to me and to the building industry. A lot of people that are building houses, they're contractors, they're sole traders, they're companies. You know, if they're not looked after, that slows down the building industry.
Slows down the economy.
Hugely.
Yeah.
Well, they stop buying things. And one of the biggest things that I saw that does not make sense to me is they've dropped the $20,000 instant asset write-off. So you go buy a $20,000 trailer for your business.
Yeah.
You could write that off instantly in that financial year.
Yeah.
And it drops your net income by $20,000.
Yeah.
So that you don't pay tax on that portion. They've canned that. So it doesn't make sense that they're trying to grow the building industry, but then taking away or taxing the people that are building these buildings more.
Yeah. I mean, and a lot of people I don't know, I could just expect some sort of backlash on that comment saying that, you know, people shouldn't be able to have that instant tax deduction or write-off. And it's like, well,
go start a business and see how fun it is.
And take that risk. A lot of these people are probably only doing $100,000 a year, or potentially even less, and they need as much as they can to ride that off.
Most sole traders that are plumbers, builders, they're not earning much more than $100K a year. So this is a big thing for them.
Yeah.
You know, they go buy a new ute or something like that.
Yeah.
Or a used for $20K. It's a big incentive for them. All of a sudden now they don't really feel the need to put that second crew on because, you know, there's no real huge benefit for that.
No.
Energy was a big one, which I'm going to flip forward. So their biggest solve or saviour for households again was they're going to give $150 to the power companies to take that off your bill. That makes zero sense to me. Hey, dickheads, I know you have been charging all the consumers a heap, but we'll give you, a few $1 billion and you just take that off everyone's bill.
Is that in there for the percentage increase for the electricity companies as well?
Well, that's what I was going to go into next. So the power in New South Wales at the moment is expected to increase by between 7 and 9%, essentially. Yeah. So with a typical annual bill of $1,500 per annum, that's an increase of $134. So they're giving $150 to the power companies to then increase your actual bill anyway by $134. So what, you're $16 better off. That sink in. That's their big solving power. You know, you're going to be $16 better off in 12 months from now, which is great. Personally, I think that the power increasing by between 7 and 9% per annum, that's the issue.
Yeah.
Why is it increasing so much? Why are they not capping these increases like they did with private health insurance and some of these other things in the industry?
Yeah.
I know, I think off the top of my head, Germany did something similar where they capped private industry and said you cannot increase more than this per annum.
Yeah.
Why are we not doing that?
Yeah.
You know, there might, if someone's listening and has a reason for that comment.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Obviously, there's reasons behind it, and it's, you know, whether it's some sort of transition to sustainable energy and there's costs involved with that or what. But handing out energy rebates when you've got such a big inflation figure on.
Well, they're getting it back via tax.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like they're handing it to the power company, and then they're going to get that back as part of their net profit.
Yeah,
you know, plus you pay GST on your power bill as well.
Yeah.
So the actual net benefit for the household is next to zero.
$16.
$16, but then you've got to take your GST off that.
Yeah. That's, you know,
which is what, $15?
That's only expected to increase at 8%, could increase by 10%, and then there's no benefit.
So yeah, look, my thoughts on that is it's of no benefit.
Yeah.
It will, on paper though, so this is why they want to do it. On paper, it will actually reduce inflation because the cost of energy has reduced.
Which is what
the cost of energy has not reduced. You've just supplemented it.
Yeah.
The cost did not reduce though.
Yeah.
Let's be clear with that. So they are investing a bit into cybersecurity, training workforces. So there is a little bit there for business owners, nothing real substantial. So look, my final thoughts on it are, I think that Labor government's doing what Labor governments have done really well previously. They're spending a lot of money on shit that's not really helping. Yeah. I think that needs to be tidied up first. I think that whoever comes into power, they need to stop spending so much money because that's what's contributing to inflation. Yeah. But then homeowners are getting punished for it.
Yeah.
You know, because they bundle it all up into one pool and they go, Australia is spending too much money.
Yeah.
No, the households are spending stuff all because we've got nothing. The government's spending shit on NDIS and all these other crap that was rolled out really terribly. Yeah. And that's contributing to the inflation.
Yeah.
So I think that's the number one thing that needs to be addressed.
Nothing has changed for the Labor government.
This is the same. It's the same shit as what they've currently done. I don't see, my personal opinion is I haven't seen anything in this budget that I'm going, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me. I don't like the.
I won't be voting Labor. That's
that's another podcast. If you want to get in there, we'll talk politics and then religion. But realistically, as I said, I wouldn't say hate. I dislike the shared equity scheme. Yeah. On a personal level, I wouldn't do it. No. But I'd
taking a long term stance on it.
If a client wants to go through that scheme, I'm not going to stand in their way.
Yeah.
It's something I would definitely help people with.
To get in the market, but take a long term view on it.
I would be encouraging my clients to go through the first home loan deposit scheme as opposed to that, which there's still spots available for that.
Yeah.
But that's our rant about the economy for today and the budget. Be interesting to see what Liberal come out with shortly because they will come out with their own budget quite shortly and then I'm assuming an election will be announced.
Yeah.
So once we've got that, we will run through that one as well.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for today and we'll catch everyone on the next one.